Welcome to another story made by Oracle One. John Marlowe was an unremarkable man living in an unremarkable city. His modest apartment on the fourth floor of a crumbling brick building was tucked away on a quiet street where the sounds of traffic rarely penetrated the thin walls. Nothing about John's life attracted attention. He worked as a data analyst at a local firm, lived alone, and kept to himself. His routines were steady, unchanging, predictable. But everything about John's life was about to unravel in a way that would shatter his sense of reality and put his very survival on the line. It began one sleepless midnight when John was idly scrolling through an obscure online discussion forum. He wasn't sure how he wound up there, but his eyes caught a curious link titled, "Live Feeds. See what you should not." The description was vague, a sort of voyeuristic online artifact where people allegedly shared live streams from all over the world, secret cameras, or something of the sort. John's curiosity overcame his usual cautious nature. He clicked the link. The page loaded fast on his cracked laptop screen. It showed a grid of tiny thumbnail videos, each one labeled with cryptic identifiers or geographic coordinates. Faces he didn't recognize, strange rooms, empty streets, shadows moving. But one feed caught his eye instantly. It was zoomed in on his very bedroom. John froze. The unmistakable layout of his room was right there. The dresser by the wall, the cracked blinds that let moonlight spill unevenly across the floor, the old mattress with a single pillow. The same as his own bed. The timestamp on the video said it was live. The seconds ticked steadily in the corner. He could see his own sleeping figure, faintly breathing underneath the blanket, his face peaceful and unknowing. But John lived alone. No one should have been filming him. No one should have known about this camera. He scrambled backward from the screen, his heart pounding. Had someone hacked into his webcam? Had his apartment been bugged? He grabbed his laptop, knocked over a lamp, and turned to the window to see if anyone was lurking outside. But the street was empty and silent. No van parked outside. No suspicious figures stalking the alley. Just the occasional flicker of light from a street lamp and the distant hum of the city. His mind raced through possibilities. Maybe a nightmare? A hallucination? Yet the video showed him perfectly still, like a mirrored ghost. How was this possible? The next morning, John tried everything to shake the feeling. He closed the laptop, disconnected the internet, swept the apartment for bugs. Nothing. No camera in sight. No transmitter. He even took down the few decorations on the walls, checked behind every loose panel. Nothing except the usual dust and shadows. Yet the image haunted him. Not just a one-time glitch. Somehow, that video feed seemed plugged directly into his private life. A window into his most vulnerable moment, when he was utterly defenseless. Unable to resist, John connected the laptop again that night and reloaded the site. To his horror, the video tile was still there. Still showing him sleeping. He watched a long minute as his own eyelids fluttered in the feed. The dim room as quiet as a coffin. That video broke open something deep inside John's mind. He began to feel paranoid. Every creak of the building sounded like a footstep. Every shadow became a lurking presence. He kept looking over his shoulder, his nerves shredded thin. But the live feed was only the beginning. 2 days later, John came home to find his apartment slightly altered. The sofa cushions were rearranged. A book he was sure sat on the kitchen counter was now lying on the floor. The feeling knocked the breath out of him. Someone had been inside. His sanctuary breached. He called the police, of course, but they found no evidence of break-in. No fingerprints beyond his own. Nothing stolen or disturbed beyond those subtle changes that anyone else would consider insignificant, but for John screamed a warning. He hired a private investigator named Keller, a grizzled man with cynical eyes and a slow southern drawl. Keller took the case with a mixture of amusement and concern. A man spooked by a mysterious video feed of himself? Odd, but not unprecedented. "I'll get to the bottom of whatever's going on," Keller promised. "I'll look for bugs, hacks, people watching." But even Keller was stretched thin. The apartment was clear, the laptop clean, no spyware, no sign of anyone having remotely accessed the webcam on John's system. And yet, John swore the feed was real. Every night, there it was. A video of him, sleeping alone, captured live from an impossible vantage point. Desperation simmered beneath the surface. Sleep became a nightmare. John took to staying up all night, looping the feeds, watching himself, trying to catch any movement or anomaly, any sign of the watcher. It was during one of these long nights that John noticed something else, subtle and chilling. When he wasn't sleeping, when, say, he went to the bathroom, there was still a figure on the screen, indistinct and blurred. Not him. Someone else, standing just outside the camera's view, lurking in the shadows of his room. John rubbed his eyes, leaning closer. But the figure was always just a dark smudge, a moving shadow, impossible to see clearly. This was no ordinary invasion. Someone had installed a camera inside his room, and worse, they were watching him. But how had they stayed hidden so long, undetected in a small, bare apartment with only one door and one window? One night, John set a trap. He bought a small infrared motion detector and placed it behind his closet door. He sat in the living room with the laptop open, watching the feed. At 2:13 a.m., the motion alarm beeped, soft and sudden. John's heart slammed into his throat. On screen, the shadow figure moved. And this time, John saw enough to recognize it. The intruder was wearing gloves. A mask of some kind. And they held a small gadget that emitted a faint glow, the camera itself, wireless, feeding the video in real time. John grabbed his phone and dialed Keller. "Come fast," he whispered. "He's here. For real." Keller arrived within 20 minutes, arriving in his old beat-up sedan with a flashlight and a baseball bat. Together, they searched the apartment, shining beams into every corner. Behind the closet door was the device John had spotted on the video. A tiny camera, nearly invisible against the wood grain. They smashed it into bits. Gone. Still, no sign of the intruder. No footprints. No forced entry. Nothing. John felt trapped inside a spider's web, an invisible cage where his privacy and safety had crumbled. Who was this watcher? Why him? It was Keller who finally noticed the irregularity in the live feed timestamps during an in-depth search of network traffic on John's laptop. The feed originated from a server deep inside a nondescript building located about 30 blocks away, a place housing a security company that dealt in advanced surveillance systems. They staked out the building late one night. Keller watched as a shadow slipped out the back, moving fast, trying to avoid the cameras on the street. They followed only to lose the figure halfway down an alley. That night, John examined his life more closely, raising questions he had ignored before. He searched through his emails and phone records, looking for clues. He found one encrypted message sent weeks ago from an unknown sender. No content, only a link. An address on the dark web. Against his better judgment, he clicked the link. The web page loaded slowly, then displayed a series of grainy images like surveillance photos. Shots of him walking down the street, entering his apartment, even from inside his own bedroom. The images changed quickly, replaced by a text message. "You are being watched." The message was anonymous, cold, stripped of explanation. But the implication was clear. Someone was controlling this terrifying invisible watchtower. John's life was no longer his own. His every moment under surveillance, his home violated, his mind fraying. The final piece came on a damp, cold evening when John returned to the apartment to find a tiny envelope slipped under the door. Inside was a folded piece of paper, A single sentence, written in neat, cold handwriting. "You're closer than you think." John didn't know who "you" was. The Watcher? The Stalker? Himself? The message was a puzzle and a threat. Determined to regain control, John traced the IP address back to the security company. He requested access records for the internal server. What he uncovered was a horror straight from a conspiracy novel. Someone inside the company had been siphoning the live footage from their client systems to an outside source. Someone deeply skilled, someone with access to all the cameras installed inside private homes and businesses. Someone who could target and manipulate feeds at will. But what was stranger was the profile linked to his feed. The Watcher was logged in with credentials from a recently fired security technician named Marcus Eckhart. John and Keller found Eckhart's residence, an unassuming apartment with walls covered in newspaper clippings about surveillance, photos of John's apartment, and scribbled notes about schedules and movements. But Eckhart was gone, vanished without trace, leaving behind only a chilling voicemail on John's phone. The distorted voice said, "You watch the Watcher now. But you don't see what's coming." Suddenly, the video feed returned, not on the odd website, but on John's own laptop, embedded in his screensaver. This was no random hack. Eckhart had taken full control of John's devices, turning them into a closed circuit. His every step, every move, every breath broadcast non-stop to an unknown audience. The voyeur became the captive. The need for sanctuary pushed John to the brink. He withdrew from friends, moved from his apartment, changed his number, tried to vanish. But the feed followed, popping up wherever he connected, always showing him, always watching. One night, John decided to confront the nightmare head-on. He installed his own secret camera in the new apartment. A camera disguised as a smoke detector, pointed at the front door. If Eckhart or the Shadow Watcher tried to find him again, John would be ready. The following dawn, John awoke to the buzzing vibration of his phone. An encrypted message appeared from an unknown source. Inside was a live video feed with a live chat overlay. John watched as a figure stepped through his new front door, masked, gloves on, camera in hand. The voice came through the speakers, distorted yet unmistakable. "We're closer than ever, John." John's hack instinct kicked in. Using a secure connection, he traced the incoming feed's IP address in real time. The coordinates showed an address, an abandoned warehouse across the river. Keller joined him, weapons discreet beneath their coats. At the warehouse, they found a complex setup. Screens stacked wall to wall, computers humming with dozens of live feeds, showing countless private spaces, homes, offices, hotel rooms. A massive surveillance operation controlled by a twisted network of voyeuristic hackers and ex-security employees. In the center of it all was a figure hunched over a keyboard, Eckhart. He smiled coldly and raised his weapon, but Keller was ready. A gunshot cracked the silence as Keller took the shot. Eckhart collapsed, his empire of shadows shattered. The feeds went dark. John's life was liberated but forever scarred. Alone again in a new apartment, this time truly alone, he sat at his laptop, staring at the blank screen. No video tile of his sleep, no lurking shadows, no watchers. Yet the fear remained, lingering in quiet moments when the night grew deep. The knowledge that somewhere out there, behind every screen, someone was watching. John exhaled slowly, closing the laptop and drawing the curtains tight. The closed circuit had finally been broken. For more stories, like and subscribe.